La bola se vuelve loca. Ábrame la puerta porque me voy. Adiós. Plakata.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Plakata Nation. And I am, of course, joined by the one and only, mi primo from the Bronx, Cos Rod, and also a longtime baseball writer. All right, 18 years in the making, Jesus Ortiz. All right, welcome, guys. I'm pumped up about today.
Salute. It's great to be
Buenos dias.
back.
It's
Yes,
great.
Buenos
sir.
dias.
Let's go. Let's
Let's go.
go.
Let's
Let's
go.
go.
Let's do this. Yo, let's jump in. Carlos, hit it up. You know what you got to do.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure, guys. And today's podcast, there's some sad news, guys. And Rico Carti, Dominican legend, has passed away. And I think there's, it's fitting that we're going to do a tribute for Rico Carti. As you know, Rod, Jesus, Rico is one of the biggest heroes I know of my father, right? Always talking, my father from the Dominican Republic, always talking about him. My father-in-law as well. Rico Carti had an unbelievable career. He was one of the, first Dominican superstars, okay, in the big leagues. Carti spent 8 of his 15 years with the Braves. In his memorable 1970 season, Carti hit .366 to win the National League batting crown. It is still the highest mark in Braves history, which is something to be said about that. We know how long that history is and how many greats have played with the Braves, yet that .366 batting average is the highest ever by a Brave in the modern era. His popularity was so great. Carti earned a nod to the 1970 All-Star Game as a write-in candidate. And you know who else was in that outfield? Hank Aaron and Willie Mays. Well, Rico was right there with them. The Dominican Republic is definitely mourning the passing of Rico Carti. And our thoughts go out to the family, his family, and all of Dominican Republic, who right now is definitely he's going to be one of these guys that's going to be missed. Because even at that advanced age of 85 years old, you should have seen his personality and how awesome it was to have conversations with him. And Rico Carti will definitely be missed.
I'm like you, Carlos. I grew up hearing from my dad and all the tios, my mom, even my aunts, everybody talking about this man and how important he was. And uh, I feel like as a person that obviously I'm not of that age, so I missed out on hearing how important he was to Dominican baseball. And we talk about nowadays about how important representation is, and to have a guy in that era, who's Dominican, who's a good player at that, that's powerful. And who knows how many players and how many people he inspired to play the game of baseball.
One thing that I really find comfort in is the fact that he was put into the Braves Hall of Fame in 2023. So he was able to get his flowers while still alive, and he's forever remembered in Braves franchise history. He is a Braves Hall of Famer. So that is awesome that a year before he died, he got put into that Hall of Fame.
Yeah, that is indeed a well deserved. And one thing that we must mention is how difficult it was for him to actually establish himself in the major leagues. Remember, this is we talk a lot about Jackie Robinson, and then those who followed after Jackie broke the barrier. But those were difficult times. We have to go back to 1965. We're thinking about Martin Luther King, the segregation laws and all those things. Rico Carti had to endure all of that, or at least have to just navigate that type of situation, and to be able to perform at that level. Just the same way we praise guys like Willie Mays, Hank Aaron, that had to really perform under extreme pressure. Well, we could say the same thing about Rico Carti, and needless to say, Rico Carti means a lot to us Dominican baseball players because he was also sort of a trailblazer for us. So we have a lot to thank Rico Carti for. And now you see the Dominican stars in the major leagues, how prevalent they are. Well, Rico Carti had a lot to do with that because he pretty much opened up doors for us to walk through. All
That is
right.
a fact.
So,
That is a fact.
yes, indeed. And, so Rico will be deeply missed. And we must honor him for sure. And with that, let's move on to perhaps a little bit more of a happy story, or for Jesus it may not be because pressure is going to be on him. Jesus, look, the Hall of Fame ballot was just recently announced, and we're going to drill you, man. So we're going to play a little game with you about who are you voting for or
Woo!
not, and why.
Exclusive.
Oh,
Exclusive, people. Get ready. Get ready. You're getting a
go.
sneak peek at what's coming.
Let's go.
So this is going Plakata with Jesus Ortiz. All right. So take a deep breath, man, because it's coming in hot. We've seen the ballot right here. We want to know what you're thinking and why. All right.
Carlos, wait, mention some of the names that are on the ballot in case people don't know what's
Man,
what's going on.
This ballot is absolutely stacked. Bobby Abreu, Carlos Beltran, Mark Burley, Carlos Gonzalez, Andrew Jones, Ian Kinsler, Torrey Hunter, Andy Pettit, Henley Ramirez, Manny Ramirez, Fernando Rodney, Alex Rodriguez, of course, Francisco Rodriguez, Jimmy Rawlings, Cece Sabathia, Suzuki, Ichiro Suzuki, Troy Tulowitzki, Chase Utley. Come on, man. Ben Sobris, my teammate.
Your teammate, your
This
boy.
is crazy. Billy Wagner, absolute gas from the left side. I told you, it was absolutely stacked. And can I say this, guys? Look, for these first-time guys on the ballot, right? I was on that ballot, and to me, it was an unbelievable honor, all right? I lasted just a year. I dropped off. My numbers, were not quite there. But just to be on this ballot, I remember getting that letter, and I cried. I read it to my kids. We were all like, my wife was there. He's like, I sit down, guys, because I have to show you something. And my wife Pamela brought out that letter where it says that I was on the ballot, and I cannot tell you, it was a very, very emotional moment, and I was extremely grateful. Okay, and gratitude, as we will talk about a little bit later, is absolutely huge, and I cannot tell you how grateful I was to be on that ballot. So trust me, just to be on a list like this, it's an absolute honor for anyone who has ever worn a big league uniform. All right. So without further ado, let's go, Jesus. Going Plakata with Jesus Ortiz. Jesus, are you going Plakata on Carlos Beltran?
First of all, let me just say this. I love hearing you tell us how much of an honor it is to be on that ballot. It's a great honor to vote. And I've been in the Hall of Fame. If you've never been to the Hall of Fame, you should go. I love serving on Hall of Fame committees. And I love what the Hall of Fame represents. So first of all, please understand as a voter how much weight is on us, and we appreciate that your career deserved to be recognized and to be considered for the ballot. So it's a great honor to have considered all these guys. Carlos Beltran, absolutely. Plakata all the way. I voted for him every year he's been on the ballot. And I do think that he's going to make a huge jump. I don't know that he'll get in this year, but I think that he makes a huge jump. The voters obviously punished him the first year on the ballot for the cheating scandal in Houston. He got a little bit more votes last year, and I think he's going to he'll be a Hall of Famer eventually, but probably not this year, but he'll get my vote again. And when I consider a guy, I consider him if I am picking him in his era, is he the guy I want? When I think of center field, and I covered him, I was the Astros beat writer for the Houston Chronicle when he was traded over and had that magical 2004 postseason that you remember.
Yeah.
I'd never seen anything like that. outside of a guy named Barry Bonds. He crushed it in 2004, almost led the Astros to the World Series. Absolutely, Carlos Beltran is a caballo. He is a Hall of Famer. Plakata, Carlos Beltran for me.
Awesome.
Plakata, Carlos Beltran. He's in. Jesus, those are great points. You know, I do have a great story with Carlos Beltran because we know the numbers. The numbers, because Rod, I mean, look at the numbers. They speak for themselves. That is his pretty much his campaign. All you have to do is just look at the back of this baseball card. But I have
Yep.
more to add. This is a good man. This is a good person. The character's there because I know when we talk about the Hall of Fame, depending on how you vote, there's also a lot of voters, and Jesus, maybe you can attest to this, that we are thinking about protecting the Hall in a sense that you want high character, solid character men in there. Well, you know, despite of the things that have happened, I just have a personal story. Look, I remember being at first base. You know, I was going through a tough time. You know, hitting. Maybe I was in a deep slump. And I remember Carlos getting to first, and Carlos, you know, kind of just patted me on the back. He's like, "Hey, I got something for you after the game." I didn't know what he meant. You know, I didn't ask him for help or anything, but he saw probably my frustration. Maybe I slammed my helmet. I don't know, and it was well documented. Trust me, you know, these writers. Jesus, sorry to say this, you guys don't miss anything. So it was no secret that I was struggling. Okay, and after the game, there was a little notebook on my locker. I was like, what is this? I grabbed it. Guys, it was Carlos Beltran. He must have sat there and written maybe for an hour. And he prepared a systematic just approach, preparation on what he thought was important to hitting. He had a bunch of tips in there. I still have this at home. It's like a little, you know, hitting Bible that I keep and I show my kids and all that because it was a systematic way of going about your preparation and approach at the plate. Unbelievable how he just sat in his hotel room and said, you know what, Carlos needs this. Let me put this together. It must have taken him an hour. And he did that without me asking, just out of his own heart. Just started like, I'm going to help my brother out. You know, I'm going to help my tocayo out, you know. And so he did. That's Carlos Beltran for you. And that's one of the stories, because if you go around the league, there's a bunch of guys who will tell you the same. This guy is a high character individual, and the numbers are there. So I'm with you, Jesus. That's he's got my vote.
I agree. I agree. I want to throw my 2 cents in on Carlos. He, this is a guy that and you guys can let me know if I'm right or wrong on this. I feel like every clubhouse he went into, every team he went into, he made an impact, whether it was on the field or in the clubhouse. He was a guy that was a leader instantly. In Kansas City, you saw the flashes. You're like, this guy's gonna be great. And then you saw when he went to Houston, you saw when he went to the Mets, you saw when he went to the Yankees. You just saw, yeah, obviously, as he got older, it started to decline, but the effort was always there. That's the thing with Carlos Beltran. He was just this guy who you knew was just destined to be a phenomenal baseball player. And I would love to see him in the Hall of Fame. It's great to see someone of Latino origin, Boricua, to make it, and it's a beautiful thing because it's just a testament to what baseball has meant to the Caribbean and to the people of Puerto Rico. And he's just a really, really, really good dude, and you could tell anytime they interview him, anytime there's something that people talk about Carlos Beltran, like you did, Carlos, too, they talk about him with this sense of love. And those are Hall of Fame credentials right then on their own.
Yeah, indeed, indeed, and I love it. Great vote. I'm with you, Jesus. And I must go back and say, look, Jesus has been voting for 18 years, cuz 18 years he's been a voter. I don't know how young he was. Probably was like 15 when he started voting. I mentioned at the beginning of the show. That's a compliment. So do the math. I just made you extremely young. Okay.
I know.
but I'll tell you this, like I said this on the top of the show, hey, this has been 18 years in the making. No, you've been a writer for a long, long, long time, but 18 years of Hall of Fame voting. So before I go to the next one, how old were you when you started?
I think 26.
Yeah.
Because remember, you need to be a BBWA member for 10 consecutive years before you get your ballot. No, 25, 25. No, no, yeah, 25, 25.
Yeah, that's a baby right there. So you've been doing it for a long time, and you've earned the right. All right, Jesus, you've earned the right. And I'm going to have a difficult one for you coming up. How about going Plakata on CC Sabathia?
Ooh.
That is the difficult one. That is the one that I'm considering. People I've talked to mention how his peak was better than Felix Hernandez's peak, his 5 year peak. The only difference is that Felix Hernandez's peak was 9 years. I find it very difficult to vote for a guy who has a career 374 ERA. I think ultimately he gets in the Hall of Fame. Does he have to wait a couple years? He might have to wait a couple years, but you think of Mike Mussina. Who do you want on the mound, Mike Mussina or CC Sabathia? Mike Mussina is a Hall of Famer. He got in 2019, 368 ERA. You think of Jack Morris.
Yeah, how about Jack Morris? So don't talk to me about ERA. You can't give me that excuse, Jesus, because Jack
No,
Morris
no,
is
no.
a higher ERA than CC Sabathia.
Yeah, 390. Except what Jack Morris did in the World Series, you're like, oh, okay, he's a dog. Absolutely. But remember, these are the things you consider, right? So I'm still debating that. But if you're putting me on the spot, Plakata. Absolutely. And he was a dog.
Plakata, going Plakata on CC Sabathia.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, this is like you talk about character guys, big time character guy, big time leader, a guy that I'd want pitching on my team. Remember, he gave up that bonus.
Yo, I was about to say the same thing, Jesus. I
I
remember
believe it.
that. Oh my God. How much was it? It was a lot.
I
It was
think it
like
was
a big,
$500,000 or
yeah,
something.
it was a lot.
The dude left money on the table because he had to defend his teammates in his mind. It's old school mentality. Just self ejected. I'm like, that's an honorary Mexicano right there. Like, oh man, you know what? Like, that's the kind of stuff our hit that does, right? So yeah, that if there's like a balance, that tipped it right there.
Yeah.
Total leader, led three teams to deep playoff runs, and I really do think that he will fit in. I don't know that he gets in this year, but I think he eventually gets in. If Jack Morris is in, CC Sabathia deserves to be in.
Okay, let me say this. With CC, CC is very close to my heart because obviously he led the Yankees to the 2009 World Series. He was a pivotal piece. He was the ace. He was the leader. He was the dog of that team. He was the guy that was the heart and soul of what that team was. You know, I remember when Brian Cashman signed him, he told Brian Cashman told him, I want you to bring that attitude that you had in Milwaukee and in Cleveland. I need you to bring that into this clubhouse because this clubhouse needs it. And the Yankees allowed him to do that. And he was such a force for them and led them to the World Series. And let me just go back to, I mentioned Milwaukee. I don't think I have ever seen what that man did from another pitcher. How many consecutive games did he have for that team? He said he literally told the Brewers, "Get on my back. I am going to take us to the playoffs." He did that. He merited that big contract he got from the Yankees, and he merits the vote that that Jesus is going to give him, and he's going to merit all the votes that he gets. Hopefully he gets in. But I also understand the difficulty of getting him in on the first. But in my honest opinion, if I had a vote, he would get a vote just on the fact that that man carried his teams. He played with heart. He played with love, and he was always there. And that's the one thing that you always hear about CC Sabathia. All of his teammates just love him. There was you never heard a bad thing about him. And Carlos, you can tell me, how was it facing that dude?
No, it was extremely difficult for me. I mean, I joke around all the time that if I was not in the league, then this conversation wouldn't even be necessary because he wouldn't be close to being a Hall of Famer. But since he played against me and he struck me out so many times, his numbers got, padded and increased. So now we're talking about him being a Hall of Famer. So I joke with him and say, hey, man, you owe me a few dinners, okay? Like, your numbers are impressive, but if you take me out, maybe not as much, okay? And he admits that, he was a tough one. And, cause I got to say this, man, like, I understand, but your passion talking about Cesar Sabathia, I got to say I'm jealous, man, because I hit the Yankees pretty well, but now I'm thinking to myself, man, I wonder who he was pulling for every single time I came up to the plate. Was Cuz Rod pulling for Cesar Sabathia to strike me out, or was Cuz Rod pulling for his cuz to perform? All right, and I think I already see it, Jesus. He was freaking pulling for Cesar Sabathia. This guy is an absolute. This guy's a sellout right here with us.
No, hey!
Selling out.
I'm from the Bronx. I'm from the Bronx. I don't sell out.
Yankee
I don't
fans.
sell out. Blood is thicker than water. Every
Okay.
time you were batting up, I wanted you to do great because you're my cousin and you were on my fantasy team. So I needed you to do
All right.
really, really well. Okay.
All right.
I was
All right.
just like I rooted for Griffey every time he was batting up against the Yankees. I rooted for you too. Okay. So just think about what I just said. I put you in the same thing as Ken Griffey Jr. That's love, bro. And you know how much I love Ken Griffey Jr.
Good. I had to get in there. This is real, right? This podcast is real. When you were talking about Sabathia, I got a little jealous, man. He broke my hand. I was on a nice tear in 2009, and he broke my hand. And here comes a quick story about the character of Cece. I was really upset. I was very upset. I didn't talk to him after the game. He didn't come up to me after the game. This guy's a competitor, man. We went head to head. It was tough. I got him a couple times, so man, he really was tough on me. Well, if you fast forward, 10 years after that, we're doing a show together. And on national television, guys, he didn't have to do this. I didn't even say anything. He said, Carlos, man, I apologize for that. 10 years later, he said, I apologize for breaking your hand. You were taking some mighty hacks up there at the plate. You were feeling good. And I wanted to go inside on you, but that two-seamer got away from me. It was not intentional, and I knew that. I knew he wasn't trying to hit me. I knew he was going to try to come in to get me uncomfortable, and it just got away from him and broke my hand and ended my season. He apologized to me on national television. He didn't have to. It just shows you right there that he's like, no, I owe this man an apology, and he did so, and I really appreciated it, and he didn't have to. So hats off to Sabathia. He showed a lot of professionalism there, but just his humanity to swallow his pride in that moment and do so really meant a lot to me. So I loved it. This guy is beloved in the major leagues by his opponents, as difficult as he was, but also by his teammates, most importantly. All right. So Cesar Sabathia, I appreciate your vote, Jesus. That's awesome. I'm with you there as well. At least it kind of gives me a little bit of it justifies how difficult it was to go up against him. He's a Hall of Famer, man. Couldn't hit him.
Yeah. So what next we have wow, this is a good one. Jesus, who you going Plakata with on this? Billy Wagner.
Oof.
Let me tell you, I absolutely love what Billy Wagner stood for. I will be one of only 3 people who have voted for Billy Wagner and announced and publicly released their ballot, I think, all 10 years. I covered Billy Wagner 2001, 2002, 2003. I was there that day. He had the infamous end of season press conference where he just ripped the owner of the Astros, and like you knew he was going to get traded. And but when I think of Hall of Famers, I think of how did they stack against their competition. When Billy Wagner pitched, he was one of a handful of guys, top 3 guys that I want closing for me. If you said, Jesus, you have Mariano Rivera, Billy Wagner, Hoffman, who are you going to pick to close? Mariano Rivera, obviously the greatest of all time. Billy Wagner second, and then Hoffman. If I had a bullpen, that those would be like Rivera 8th, 9th inning, Wagner 8th, Hoffman 7th, which is ridiculous, right? Because Hoffman's like was the all-time saves leader before somebody broke his record by the name of Mariano Rivera. Billy Wagner is a Hall of Famer. It is heartbreaking to me that it's taken him so long. Fell 5 votes shy last year. Devastated. And I tell you, we don't appreciate relievers enough, and, which is ridiculous because nothing ruins your season quite like a bad bullpen. I think in 10 years from now, guys like Billy Wagner are going to be appreciated more because the game has changed. Because now guys are like, tell the starter, give me 5 innings and we'll handle it with the bullpen. Yeah. Billy Wagner was one of the greatest bullpen guys of all time, one of the greatest closers. He will get Plakata again for the 10th consecutive year. And I hope to be in Cooperstown when Billy Wagner is inducted.
You know, you made a great point right there, Jesus, as far as the game changing. I think we have already, I mean, even if you're not deep into the numbers, I think it's very difficult not to recognize the value of a good shut down bullpen and just closing the door on games, okay? I think about Billy Wagner. You talk about him being the closer, but I think of him as a fireman, just putting out fires, right? Whenever, if you think about him coming in and just going into high leverage situations and stopping the bleeding immediately and getting some wins for his ball club, that's exactly what you want from relievers. And I think now more than ever, we see their value. I think statistically, the community has definitely, it's leaning towards giving relievers that extra, let's say, we're looking at what contributions they make to the game and how much they actually switch, the balance. They move the balance over to the winning side whenever you have a solid bullpen. Then rightfully so. Is that I believe that because of that this year, you're talking about 5 votes shy. There's no way. I just don't see how he stays, short of the voting. I think he gets in.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you one thing, and this is why I think it's so important. From the first day I got my ballot, I've asked people for their opinions. I know that I love baseball. You don't cover a team for 10 consecutive years, which is what it takes to get the card, to the Hall of Fame ballot, without loving baseball, because it's a lot of work and you have to love the baseball for it not to feel like work. And I asked fans, I asked players, but I really lean on players. And I'll tell you what, last December, I was on the era committee ballot, one of 16 people on the committee that elected Jim Leyland, okay? So we had like Bud Selig there, Bill DeWitt Jr., the owner of the Cardinals. We had Hall of Famers Jim Tomei, Chipper Jones, Tom Glavine, Jeff Bagwell. So I'm in this committee with these folks for 3 days, 2 days. We're out to dinner one night, lunch, blah, blah, blah. And I asked Chipper Jones, hey, I voted for him for 9 consecutive years. Is he a Hall of Famer? Absolutely. And then he explains why. I asked Tom Glavine. Absolutely. He explained these are guys who were his teammates and also his opponents. Jeff Bagwell. Absolutely. These are Hall of Famers. If a Hall of Famer says this guy's is a Hall of Famer, who am I, who's never been in that box, to say he's not? If Chipper Jones says he's a Hall of Famer, well, damn well, he's a Hall of Famer. If Tom Glavine says Billy Wagner's a Hall of Famer, to me, Billy Wagner's a Hall of Famer. And Jeff Bagwell, who you know, Carlos, from your time in Houston, he's always been around the team, whether he was playing or not. To me, Jeff Bagwell is probably the guy that I respect the most out of all the players I've ever covered. If he says Billy Wagner's a Hall of Famer, to me, he's a Hall of Famer. Billy Wagner, Roy Oswalt, those are probably the guys that I've kept in touch with the longest since I covered them. And I think Billy Wagner deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. And family is important for our culture, right? Like Dominican culture, Latino culture. When I think of Billy Wagner, This guy grew up in a broken home. He grew up having to, like have government, like he talked about, like having to show his ticket to go get his free government lunch.
Mm.
He wanted to make sure that he was there for his kids. And that's why he retired early. He retired after an all-star season. He could have kept
Remember
pitching.
that? Yeah.
He could have kept pitching, but he wanted to be there for his kids in a way that his dad wasn't there for him.
Wow.
And now, sadly, his Hall of Fame candidacy has kind of suffered from that because, he didn't accumulate numbers. We reward guys who accumulate numbers and stay longer than they probably are effective. But I think in Billy Wagner's case, I think he deserves extra credit for being a father who preferred to be with his kids than to accumulate 40, 80, maybe 120 more saves. He could, if you think about the fact that he was an all-star his final year, we could assume that he was probably going to get like 30, 40 saves the next year. And then if he keeps going, he still had gas, is my point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just it's crazy because we talk about like he didn't have enough bulk, but at the same time we look at guys peak years, which are just some voters look at 5 years, some voters look at 7 years. I'm a 7 year guy. Like I'm not a voter, but I'm just saying when I analyze these things, I like to look at 7 years. So it's like, wait a second, you can't tell me about bulk if you're looking at a 5 year span. Like why it's like it defeats the purpose. Either you are a long how many years did you play for type of guy, or if you are that guy, then you can't tell me that you're looking at peak years to have your vote, to decide your vote. So sometimes I think it's contradictory the way some of the voters explain their thought process. With Billy Wagner, what you're saying is that the character does matter. And bro, if the guy's in the club, so right, there's this distinct, very exclusive club, the Hall of Fame. The guys in the club are telling you, no, we want him in our club. I understand what you're saying, Jesus. Like, sure enough, I'm going to vote. I'm going to vote yes. So I appreciate your vote for Billy Wagner. Going Plakata on Billy Wagner, I'm with you. It was difficult to go Plakata against him, I'll tell you that. Here's a good one. Jesus, are you ready for this? Are you going Plakata on Felix Hernandez?
King Felix, put respect on his name.
Oof, there you go. That's right.
And yeah, they call him King for a reason, right? This dude was 19 years old in like 118 days when he made his debut. I couldn't tie my shoes at 19 years old. This dude's in the majors at 19, right? And if you think about his peak, 2006, 2015, there are very few guys that I would have wanted on the mound in a game one against somebody else's ace more than Felix Hernandez. Felix he's just one of 5 pitchers with 2,500 plus strikeouts and 2,500 plus innings. Only one franchise, joining Walter Johnson, Bob Gibson, Bob Feller, and Clayton Kershaw, who is going to be a Hall of Famer. And when you think of, look at his numbers. One Cy Young, but he was second in 2 others. He won 2 ERA titles. He threw a perfect game. And I think I know one batter who was in that game.
Wow. Wow. You're getting attacked today, Carlos. You're getting attacked, bro.
Yeah, I think you guys are coming in hot.
6 finishes in the top 10 of Cy Young. He even has an immaculate inning and a 4 strikeout inning. But here, look at this comparison. Players with 6 plus consecutive 200 strikeout seasons. Randy Johnson, Tom Seaver, Nolan Ryan, Max Scherzer, Roger Clemens, Chris Sale, Walter Johnson, Felix Hernandez, Bert Blyleven, Clayton Kershaw, Mickey Lolich, Sandy Koufax, Sam McDowell. That's a very exclusive group.
Yeah.
Most strikeouts with a single franchise: Walton Johnson, Bob Gibson, Steve Carlton, John Smoltz, Phil Niekro, Kershaw, Sutton, Lolich, Clemens, Feller, Seaver, Hernandez, 12. So, I mean, the guy is one of the greatest of his era. And like I mentioned earlier, I compare eras. Like his 9-year run, there weren't many guys that you'd say, you know what, I'm going to take this guy above him. Baseball Reference wins above replacement from 2006 2015. Kershaw 48.1, Hernandez 47.2. That is 1 and 2 for pitchers. Fangraphs, that same span, 50.1, Felix Hernandez, Justin Verlander 49.4. And you know Justin Verlander is going to the Hall of Fame. Clayton Kershaw 47.1, CC Sabathia 43.4. So during that 9-year peak, Felix Hernandez had a higher WAR against those future Hall of Famers: Verlander, Kershaw, Sabathia. We're going to assume Sabathia gets in, okay? And most strikeouts from 2006 to 2015,
Oof.
2065.
It's unreal.
Come on. And in an era where guys do not throw complete games,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
2016, 2015, the guy threw 25 complete games.
That's
Only Cliff
insane.
Lee with 28, Sabathia with 32, and Roy Halladay with 47 in that span. He Plakata all the way for Felix Hernandez. And I know there won't be many folks who will agree with me. Not enough to get him in on the first ballot, but I don't know if he gets in. I really don't. But I think he deserves to get in.
Well, I think you make
Felix,
compelling arguments. Yeah, you make compelling arguments there, Jesus.
yeah.
Us?
Felix, I want to get into the next guy I'm going to talk about. I'm going to get into analytics, but Felix Hernandez, I think, is that first pitcher that I think analytics comes into play. And I know, Carlos, you are a doctor of analytics. You love this stuff. Um, I feel like you look at Felix, and Felix is he's one of the first pitchers that we're seeing now where he doesn't have a lot of wins. And I was looking through his stats, and there's times there where at his career high in wins was 19, and then there was that peak, that period where Jesus was talking where it was 14 wins, 15 wins, 11 wins, but it's the ERA, it's the
Correct.
strikeouts, it's the other thing I want to talk about is you touched on it. Game started. There was a period where he was starting like 32 to 34 games every year. You don't see pitchers do that stuff anymore. And you look at what he did as a pitcher, and I'm going to talk at it from a fan standpoint. Felix had the swag, man. Like when he was out there, he had that, like we talked about, he had that sazon. He had that aura. And when he was out there, he gave the Mariners every opportunity to win. Unfortunately, he didn't get the run support. But sure as heck, it was like those games that he lost were 1-0, 2-0, 2-1, 3-2, maybe that. This was a guy that brought it each and every start. You could not say that he did not give that team his all. And I am so happy that he got a vote and he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame because, again, I think he's one of these pitchers that we're going to start seeing now going forward that, yeah, he doesn't even have 200 wins, but through the other stats, the other things that he peaked, how he was the man during his era, does that push him into the Hall of Fame? Carlos, what do you think?
I just think right there when we talk about the wins, the reason why now the win maybe has lost weight as far as judging is concerned for these types of voting is because it's unfair, right? I mean, the pitcher can do absolutely everything perfect, and the team loses. So why are we penalizing a pitcher? I think just keep it as simple as possible. It's just flat out not fair to just weigh wins, right? Just because it's so many other factors come into play. All right, so that's why the wins that part does not bother me. as far as for pitchers are concerned. I'm not even considering that. I'm looking at other things like, ERA. We can look at ERA plus, depending on where you played. There's so many other stats that could be pretty much what helps you form an idea or form your criteria and form ultimately your decision as far as your voting. And you heard Jesus go through a list of things that he looks at. This is not easy, guys. I do not ever take this for granted. Jesus takes a lot of pride in making sure that his vote is correct. And the fact that he's saying Plakata on Felix Hernandez is absolutely awesome. I'll tell you personally, that perfect game was against the Rays. And he was throwing some sort of, I don't know, it looked like a split finger, a fastball, or, it was a changeup. Changeup was absolutely unhittable that day. And it looked like it was falling off the table. You knew it was coming, and for some reason, your brain just could not adjust to it. You still swung at it like if it was a fastball, and you were way early on it. I know he got me a couple times striking out. It's tough. So I remember that. Felix Hernandez, pretty cool. It would be great to see him get into the Hall of Fame. We'll see what happens there, but we know that he's getting Jesus' vote. So pretty cool. Let's move on. All right, because I got one more for you, Jesus, and I know that we're short on time, but we have to touch upon Ichiro Suzuki. Are you going Plakata on Ichiro?
Let's just go Plakata right now. We don't even have to discuss it. Absolutely. To me, I'll tell you a great story. We're in Japan, Tokyo Dome, and we're talking to Bobby Valentine. I'm a Mets beat writer for the Subway Series Mets, the 2000 Mets, who opened the 2000 season in Tokyo at the Tokyo Dome against the Chicago Cubs. And that was the first time I ever heard of Ichiro Suzuki. Bobby was telling us about this kid, because Bobby had managed in Japan. And he was telling us this kid would be great. And then Ichiro gets to spring training. And I don't know if you guys remember, Lou Piniella wasn't very impressed. Well, 3,080, I think 89 more hits. The dude deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. 3,089 hits in Major League Baseball. After getting here at 27 years old, he belongs in the Hall of Fame. He, to me, is the greatest hitter I've seen. I won't say I've seen most of his career. I won't say he's the greatest hitter I covered because I got to cover a little bit of a guy named Tony Gwynn.
Yeah.
But Ichiro did it all. He was fast. He made his legs do much of the work.
Yeah.
And no matter where he hit it, he's probably going to get on base if he made contact. Hall of Famer all the way, in my opinion. And then if you consider 4,376 hits in professional baseball, Japan, or Major League Baseball, that's more than a guy named Pete Rose. I'm not comparing him to Pete Rose. If you had me pick Pete Rose, Ichiro, I'm picking Pete Rose every time. But the hits are there.
Oh, I don't even think this is a question. I knew you were going to go Plakata on him. Now we're just talking about, is he going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer? Yes. How about unanimous Hall of Famer? I think that's what the question is. Because first ballot for sure, it's going to be an unanimous entry for him. Remains to be seen. There's always Jesus. I don't know, like from the outside looking in, I'm like, what happened to that guy who did not vote? And we're like scratching our heads, like, what was he thinking? Like, is this like one of those, someone holding a grudge or something? But I see him, I don't know, getting in unanimously into the Hall of Fame. We'll see if it does happen. Rod, do you expect the same thing?
I expect the same thing. And let me just say this. Ichiro, when he came into the majors, you always hear the term culture. You're doing it for the culture. Ichiro brought that culture in. You know what I mean? Like that guy, man, he had swag level on high, man. Like this dude, the way he moved, the way he battled, I mean,
everything, bro. Like
I remember. I would be around the block, and you'd have the kids playing wiffle ball. You had kids playing softball, baseball. I saw 7, 8, 9 year olds doing the
Yeah,
Ichiro thing,
yeah,
doing the mimicking his batting, running out lefties where they would hit, they'll run out the like that's something where that's beyond baseball. You know how we talk about Otani, we talk about guys that are just bigger than the game. Ichiro was that before Otani. I really do feel like he doesn't get enough props when it comes to that. This is a guy that played in Seattle, played out west. A lot of people probably didn't see him, but you heard. And then once you saw it, you're like, oh, I got to see this in person. His arm was breathtaking. And then I've heard a lot of people, I think you told me, Carlos, you said Ichiro could hit like 30 to 40 home runs if he wanted to because he had pop. A lot of people
yeah,
said he had a lot of pop. That in BP, he would just smash
yeah.
baseballs. Ichiro was just this guy, man, that just and a quick story, and I'll end it with this. I remember, Carlos, you gave me the honor of going with you to the future All-Star game out in Seattle, his first year, his rookie year. And we were hanging out, doing our thing and stuff. And we were at some party, and we were together, you and I, and then we just see this barrage of people, like just mad
Yeah.
people, bodyguards on deck. I'm thinking it's like a politician or something. I'm thinking, oh, so it's George Bush around. This was 2001. And no, it's Ichiro and his wife, and they're like walking.
Wow. See, I remember that. That was
All I
amazing.
saw was it was flashes. Like I was like, this is the closest I'll be to like a Hollywood premiere. Flash, flash, flash. It was insanity, insanity. And I was like, I can't believe I witnessed this. This man is incredible. Remember, rookie of the year and MVP in the same year. Just think about that. Think about that. And then just look at everything else. Look
Yeah.
at the back of his baseball card. He is the man. He definitely gets 100% vote. If he doesn't get 100% of the vote, whoever does not vote, we need to find them,
We'll hunt them down.
and remove the vote. Remove the vote because he or she does not deserve the vote. No way.
Plakata. Ichiro Suzuki. Of course he's getting in, and I'm saying he's getting in unanimously. Why not, right? I mean, give me an argument why he wouldn't. Now, this is the thing. Jesus, I'll give you I'll give you the opportunity to tell me why someone would not vote him in. All right. But
Wow.
I got a personal story. And this, remember in 2001, that same season, Rod, I mean, I got called up to the big leagues, and we were in Seattle, and they were winning, so many games. I think they had 116 wins that year, if I'm not mistaken. And when Ichiro came up to bat, you remember the Tootsie Roll? His walk-up song used to be the Tootsie Roll, but instead of saying Tootsie Roll, they used to say Ichiro. It's Ichiro, right? It was unbelievable, right? And they had like these white towels, and he would come up to bat. I remember being, for the first time in the big leagues and watching this. I was like, this is like I was watching this happen, and I thought it was a dream of how intense it was. And then later on in my career, just the following season, I'm playing against him. And he hits a double. He passes me. And I go up to him, and he liked to practice Spanish all the time. So I go up to him at second base, and I'm like, hey, you need to go to dinner. And he kind of nodded. He just nodded. Just nodded. He goes, okay. Fast forward 4 months later, they visit Detroit. I was already with the Detroit Tigers. And his translator comes over, Brad Lefton, that was his name, comes over and said, hey, Ichiro said that you guys have an agreement that you go into dinner. 4 months later,
Wow.
to the rookie, right? Like, who does that? He's like, whatever. This is just, just whatever, like easy talk, at second base, just chatter. Who cares? No. He took it seriously. And the MVP, the rookie of the year, the superstar, sent his translator to my locker, to the rookie, and said, hey, we talked about going to dinner. We're going to get in tonight. He closed down the 1,000 hotel. We go over there, and we have dinner. We talk about everything. I was in heaven, man. I was just like taking it all in and asking a bunch of questions. And, he was totally gracious with his time, just kind of relaxed, talking baseball. I paid for the dinner. I invited him, man. I need to pay for him. When I need to pick up the tab. I mean, it's the least I could do. He's like, okay, so where's the tab? I'm like, no. It's taken care of. Guys, this man just said, wait a second, no chance. This is an absolute disrespect in my culture. You cannot pay for the bill. You're younger than me. He reversed the charge. He called reversed the charge, put the money back on my credit card, and then he paid for the dinner. I mean, this is Ichiro Suzuki for you. One of my favorites of all time as a fan, and as a baseball player, we're all fans at the end of the day.
Yeah.
This man was an absolute superstar. Beautiful to watch. He was poetry in motion, all right? And, the numbers speak for themselves, but I'm telling you, when you look at him between the lines and you see this guy play, you understand that there is this superior level of ability that he had. It looked like he was floating around the bases. Just an absolute joy to watch playing baseball. He's extremely funny, by the way, humorous, amazing personality. Speaks Spanish with perfect accent. Don't let him fool you. Be careful. Don't talk around Ichiro's.
I remember a story you told me. I can't say it here, but I remember you said something, and I still remember to this day that story.
Believe it, man. So Ichiro Suzuki, Jesus, hey, the vote is to me, it's an easy vote. Now the question is going to be unanimous, and my answer to that is I hope so. He should be.
I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope he will, but then I realize that one of the things that, and I love the Hall of Fame, and I love the Baseball Writers Association of America. One of the things that we have not been able to get the Hall of Fame to agree on, and I was president of the BBWA the year that we made this proposal to the Hall of Fame, that every Hall vote should be made public. Whereas now, when we get the ballot, they ask us, would you like your ballot to be made public? I always make it public because I think I owe it to the reader, and I owe it more importantly to the players.
Oof.
That they know how I voted. Because you know what? If I want you to be open with me, Carlos Peña, the baseball player, then I should be open to you. If I want you to be able to suck it up and deal with the criticism, then I have to be able to be a man and deal with the criticism. And trust me, there's a lot of criticism that goes with this ballot, right? Every fan base thinks you hate their team, thinks you hate their guy, whether you vote for them or not. I've never voted for Andy Pettitte. And I'm sure he knows I've never voted for him. But when I see him on opening day, as I did last year, we're having a great conversation like nothing, because I guarantee you he respects the fact that I've made it public. And I'm not trying to pretend like, Andy, you're my guy, and then I don't vote for you. Like, this isn't about whose guy it is. This isn't about, if this year I've had my dinner, I've yet to receive my ballot in the mail, but I pretty much know how I'm going to finish this ballot. I had this lunch, we discussed it, and I'm stuck at 9 right now. So there might be a chance that I throw a vote in there for a guy who I really respect. And for about 12 years, you couldn't do that because there were more eligible guys than you could vote for because we had crowded ballots because of the steroids. I've never voted for guys who tested positive and got caught. Meaning, if you tested positive while it wasn't, supposed to be released, I still voted for you but I think this year there might be a guy or two where I say, you know what? Player X, you had a great career. You deserve to be recognized. And I wish, like for instance, Carlos, like if you came up on the ballot this year, I have 9 ballots. Carlos, great guy. When I covered him, I have an extra. You give him the vote. LaTroy Hawkins got Bob Nightingale's vote one year. And it wasn't because he thought LaTroy Hawkins was a Hall of Famer. It was because LaTroy Hawkins was a really good stand-up dude.
Stud. Yeah.
Who deserved. And I tell you what, and I talked to the late Pedro Gomez, and I talked to Bob Nightingale, and I regretted not giving LaTroy that vote because I was going to give him that vote. And I think this year there might be a guy or two that I say, you know what? I appreciate you. I appreciate what you meant to the game. I'm going to vote for you. So there might be a guy where there'll be some fans that say, why did you vote for this person, but you didn't vote for this guy whose numbers are better? Well, because I only saw 9 Hall of Famers on here, and I think this guy deserves a vote, so he could have a vote on there before he falls off the ballot.
Well, you know what? We look forward to seeing that because we know you're not going to hide behind the ballot. It's going to be made
No.
public. So I can't wait to see who you choose because it would be a great compliment to him, right? And that's the idea, guys. That was awesome. I mean, we dove deep into some of these 5 candidates, and Jesus pretty much very candidly explained why he was voting and why he believes some of these players are Hall of Famers, and also your doubts as well, and get a little sneak peek, cuz how privileged are we to get a sneak peek
Oh,
on
awesome.
how Jesus goes about his process in voting. It's not easy, man.
I loved it. I appreciate you, Jesus, on being so honest and open on the process, and you gave me a lot of things to think about as a fan of the game. Where sometimes it's not about the numbers. Sometimes it's about what you are, what makes you the player that you are every day. How are you in the clubhouse? How are you when it comes to giving information to reporters? Because technically, you, Jesus, you're a guy that your words then comes into play for us as fans. So your job there is very, very important. So I think it's a great way of looking at what it takes to be a voter, but then what it takes to vote and who is that you're selecting. And I can't wait to see the rest of your votes. And I love the little wrinkle you threw in there. I might be a little surprised. I might throw a little curveball and give something to somebody. And I love how you cleaned it up to Carlos. Say, yeah, if you were on the ballot, I'd give you a vote. I
That's love right there. That's love.
I see what you did. I see what you did.
Carlos is like, you're full of it. You had your chance to give me my vote.
Well, in my time, right, it was too full. It was too full. You had 10, Hall of Famers. I get it. Fine.
What year were you on the ballot, Carlos?
That was 3 or 4 years ago. I don't remember exactly what year it was.
Yeah, the ballots were still crowded 3 years ago. It stopped being crowded 3 years ago.
Hey, let me fix this light that's coming in through this window.
Bro, it sounds like you're like in a club, It's like doom, 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 doom.
Is that better? Yeah, now you can see.
That is way better. Yes, that's way better.
Now you can see me. Our production manager and editor is going to be able to edit that out. But
yeah.
All right, guys. So, guys, we have the quote of the day. All right, and I'm going right to it. Quote of the day: on your feet now, applaud God. Bring a gift of laughter. Sing yourselves into His presence. Know this: God is God, and God. He made us. We didn't make Him. We're His people, His well-tended sheep. Enter with the password, thank you. Make yourselves at home, talking praise. Thank Him. Worship Him. For God is sheer beauty, all generous in love, loyal always and ever. I love this, guys, because this is Thanksgiving week. And this is Psalm 100 attributed to King David, and it's all about just giving thanks, right? So I love the fact that he says, hey, enter the gates with the password, thank you. So it goes hand in hand, like that. Everything that's good starts with gratitude, even in our most dire and difficult situations. When we're able to find something to be thankful for and we give thanks, it really just opens up the gates to God's favor. All of a sudden you wake up with a little pep on your step because you have things to be thankful for. And generally, I could say that whenever we wake up in the morning, and I tell this to everyone, it's like, hey, when you wake up in the morning, first thing you should do is just give thanks. Write 3 things that you're grateful for. That is a great habit to get into. And you'll be surprised how immediately your whole entire demeanor and attitude and mentality and energy all of a sudden changes because of the fact that you have an attitude of gratitude. So I cannot stress enough the importance of having an attitude of gratitude. And with that said, I want to know, guys, what you are grateful for. And I'll start you know what? I'm grateful for my family. You know, I'm grateful for my friends. You know, I'm grateful for, you know, fried, you know, sweet plantains. All right, which are absolutely delicious. Okay, I'm grateful for, you know, Café Santo Domingo. Right, I'm just giving you simple things, but I think we could say, you know, you know, my kids, my wife, you know, our health. You know, I have so many things to be grateful for. So I want to make sure that I start on the right foot by giving thanks to God for all the beautiful things that He has blessed me with, starting with those loved ones that are by my side. Guys, please let me know, what are you guys grateful for?
Well, should I go first? What do you think?
Go ahead, Jesus. Go ahead, my man. Go ahead.
Well, first and foremost, I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful to be blessed with a wife who inspires me daily, kids, girls who inspire me tremendously. I'm grateful that for good health,
Yes,
and literally uh, at a time where we have some family medical concerns with people I care about. I'm grateful that I have my health. I'm grateful that my wife and kids have their health, and I'm grateful that in the last year that Yale accepted Yale and a few other big time institutions accepted my
wow,
middle
it's
one,
awesome.
and she's up to a great start at Yale.
That's great.
My oldest is at Rice, and my youngest, who knows more baseball than any kid I know, is doing a great job in high school and on her way, leader in sports and academics. But and also like I'm grateful for the menudo and the carnitas that I could go get. I'm grateful for the
Yes,
I'm grateful for how happy I make my wife when I go
Oh,
get tamales every Saturday or
that's what I'm
church
talking
on
about.
Sunday. So those are some things, and I'm grateful for the fact that I'm running again and trying to get back in shape. And I'm grateful for you guys, for
oh,
Plakata Nation, and this opportunity that you guys believe in
Likewise.
our Esquina's mission of
same,
amplifying Latino voices in sports,
same,
arts, and culture.
same.
And I'm grateful for the Esquina crew because they are badasses and they're taking
Yeah.
this company higher and higher.
Indeed.
Wow. Wow. I got to follow that up. Thank you. So thank you. Thank you for doing that. I appreciate that. And you're awesome. The whole our Skina team. Me and Carlos, we feel so welcomed and to be a part of this again. There was a little moment there where I was afraid that, oh man, I don't think this Plagata Nation podcast is happening again. And then Carlos, shot me a text. I would shoot him a text too. Hey, listen, how's everything? I always checked up with Carlos. I don't like to bug Carlos so much because I know how busy and how precious his time is. But he
You
would
don't have
always
a,
shoot a text to me and he'll be like, hey, I'm trying to work on something. And then look what happened. You were talking about God and how thankful we are that, that was God talking through you, letting me know, hey, listen, don't worry. Things are going to happen at the right time and they're happening now. So being here with you, Carlos, the whole crew, because we're a team. I said it in our little text chain, like we're a team. I appreciate that. Just want to press this to say it's been a tough year for me personally. I've lost people in my family. I've lost a cousin beginning of the summer, lost an uncle in the summer as well, two uncles. My wife lost someone very dear to her as well, and it's been tough. So I say family. I'm grateful for family. I'm grateful for friends because they are what makes us who we are as gentlemen, as people of planet Earth. When you hear us through this podcast and we speak from our heart, it's because our family and our friends helped shape us this way. So I'm so grateful and thankful for our family, our friends. Thank you so much for having my back and being there for me and having, being a soundboard for me, letting me vent. I thank you and I appreciate you all. And in terms of what another thing I'm grateful for is I'm grateful for being able to go to the deli and get a chopped cheese. I'm grateful that I'm able to go get a bacon, egg, and cheese. I'm grateful for Cafe Bustelo. I'm grateful for I got a pernil in the freezer that I'm about to season that is gonna make people really happy on Thursday because that's my specialty, pernil.
oh,
Um,
yes.
and you know what, man? I'm grateful for baseball. I'm grateful for life. I'm grateful for everything that we get to take in every single day, because this is what it's about. We get up, we live our lives, and we try to find happiness. We try to find what makes us happy. So our Plakata Nation community, our Esquina community, find what makes you happy. Be positive, be good to yourself and to others.
Yeah, this is absolutely awesome. Look, I was like full of energy when this show started, but after doing that gratitude exercise, man, I'm ready to go run, 5 miles right now. As soon as you talk about running, I'm gonna take off as soon as we wrap this up. I mean, hey, man, the power of gratitude. What a beautiful thing. So let's start right there, and let's see, for all our listeners out there and the Plakata Nation community, let's see if we can start making it a habit of every single morning, at least writing down 3 things that you're grateful for. It'll make a huge difference in your lives, especially that cumulative effect as the days go by. So attitude of gratitude. That's the way we're going to end Plakata Nation today. All right, everyone have a beautiful and happy Thanksgiving. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, all right? Plakata!